Voltaire was basically a man of reason who loathed fanaticism, idolatry, and superstition. That men can kill each other to defend some bit of religious doctrine which they scarcely understand is something he found repellent, and he reserved his greatest hatred for the clerics who exploited the credulity of believers to maintain their own power base. Voltaire wanted religion, but not the church. For obvious reasons, the Catholic authorities were not keen for Voltaire's poem about Henry IV, La Henriade, to be published in France. So Voltaire decided to go and publish it in London instead, and in 1726 went and travelled to England. What began as a business trip soon turned, however, into something quite different, and Voltaire ended up staying in England for some 2.5 years. He learnt to speak English fluently, got to know writers and politicians, and became a great admirer of English Protestant culture. He decided to write a book about his experience of England, and the Letters Concerning the English Nation appeared first in English in 1733. The French authorities were horrified. The book was censored, and Voltaire only narrowly avoided prison. That's because the book presented an informal portrait of English culture in a witty and ironical style, looking in turn at religion, politics, science, and literature, in ways that were critical, implicitly, of French culture and politics. Here, for example, is how Voltaire presents the Royal Exchange, a handsome building in the heart of the city of London where merchants from across the world would meet to transact business. "Take a view of the Royal Exchange," Voltaire wrote, "where the representatives of all nations meet for the benefit of mankind. There the Jew, the Mahometan, and the Christian transact together as though they all profess the same religion, and give the name of infidel to none but bankrupts. There the Presbyterian confides in the Anabaptist, and the Churchman depends on the Quaker's word. At the breaking up of this pacific and free assembly, some will withdraw to the synagogue, and others to take a glass. If this man goes and is baptized in a great tub in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, that man has his son's foreskin cut off, while a set of Hebrew words, quite unintelligible to him, are mumbled over his child. If one religion only were allowed in England, the government would very possibly become arbitrary. If there were but two, the people would cut one another's throats. But as there are such a multitude, they all live happy and in peace." Voltaire's message is clear. Religious differences are trivial and separate men, while trade is important and brings them together. His conclusion that the plurality of religions in England leads to a more peaceful society is, of course, a covert criticism of France, where the Catholic Diwan, a Protestant merchant, Jean Calas, was accused of murdering his son and sentenced by the judges of Toulouse to be tortured and then broken on the wheel. The legal processes were, to say the least, irregular, and the suspicion grew that the judges in this Catholic city had acted with excessive zeal out of religious bigotry. Voltaire became involved in the case and mounted an energetic campaign to rehabilitate Calas's memory and help the members of his family who'd been left destitute. He wrote letters to those in authority and published a stream of pamphlets, culminating in 1763 in his Traité sur la tolérance, which begins with the historical facts of the Calas case and broadens out into a history of religious intolerance in European culture. Voltaire's writings had enormous impact on public opinion, and eventually the judges in Paris quashed the judgment of the Toulouse court. Too late to save Calas, but a huge victory for Voltaire, who'd learnt an important lesson about how change could be brought about through the pressure of public opinion. "Opinion rules the world," he wrote in 1764, "but in the long run it's the philosophers who shape this opinion." Voltaire said of himself that he wrote to act, and he wanted his writings to change the way people thought and behaved. In leading his crusades against fanaticism, he even invented a campaign slogan, "Écraser l'infâme," which translates roughly as "crush the despicable." L'infâme stands here for everything that Voltaire hated, everything that he had spent his life fighting: superstition, intolerance, irrational behavior of every kind.